Cindy and I are on a similar path here. So there's still time to review your yard for natives. We're seeing the bulbs and the heather come up, but you can look out and say, where could I tuck a native plant or two? My favorite standouts are the evergreen huckleberry because of their great shape. They take sun or part shade. You see them all along our roadsides. You can see how hardy they are. You can harvest the berries and then leave some for your birds, so it's a great cooperative arrangement. Pacific wax myrtle for hedges or standalones, and of course the red twig dogwood. They're all great. So, thinking about how to help the bumblebees. Cindy's list is great. This comes from National Wildlife Federation. As you see, you can go to the website, find out a lot more information. I'm going to be talking about some of the flowering perennials that are already on this list. So, half of our continent's 50 bumblebee species face some level of extinction risk. And as Doug Ptolemy and others advocate, you and I, as homeowners with property that we control, we are the biggest drivers of how we can help these species. So part of the goal is to provide flowering plants from early spring all the way to late fall. And as you can imagine, what would it be like if Thriftway was closed for 4 months? And IGA, and you were like, okay, what do I have in my pantry? And how long would it be before you were hungry? So these creatures need feeding all the way through, and what a deal, we get the flowers. So everybody wins. So some of the fall bloomers, I'm starting to plant more fall bloomers because I realized I had early spring color, mid-season, and then my yard starts to look kind of ragged. So I have started expanding. So asters are host plants for caterpillars of 100 moth and butterfly species. And there are some fabulous asters out there. Periwinkles, deep purple, light purple. I mean, have fun with them. And they only get bigger, a bigger clump every year. So that can become one of your dig and divides, or you can say, okay, I've got a clump of aster here, I'm gonna dig out part of it now, this spring, and have some more color over here, over here, over here. Because as Cindy was saying, if you can have clumps of 3 or 5, 7, that's good for bringing more of the creatures in, and it's good for the beauty. Goldenrod is also listed here. Mountain mint, which is actually a summer bloomer, but it blooms for 8 weeks, and it has white blooms that are magnets for pollinators. Good old bee balm, just from the name, the Monarda, has either red or purple blooms, so again, you can decide what or both colors fit for your color scheme. And bee balm is, these things are all favored by bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds.
And aphids.
And
Aphids.
oh. Well, aphids feed creatures too, so aphids, as they say, you know, up to 10% damage on a plant is not even noticed. So you can either just wash the aphids off and let the birds come by and scoop up the leftovers. So in the bee balm, in the fall and winter, the sea heads nurture songbirds like our goldfinches. So just a little kind of factoid as we all are surviving the end of winter. Wildlife species rely primarily on one of 3 main strategies for winter survival. They either migrate, as we have our people who head off to warmer climates for a few weeks, even in this group, dormancy or cold resistance. And what they're learning is that species don't rely on a single strategy. They do some kind of combination. So the one that I think is most unusual or surprising is that there are some small mammals with exceptionally high energy demands, and they're able to shrink their skull and their brain to respond to seasonal cold. And then they grow it back in the springtime. How about that?
I think I did.
Okay, so that was just your crazy factoid of plants And if you want to see some of the flowering plants that I have talked about, they're highlighted. This is the magazine of National Wildlife Federation. If you're a member, you get it quarterly. You can go onto their website and you can read the current issue, but I'm a 20th century girl. I like holding things in my hands, so I like the fact that this comes. And I brought my extra issues, so if anyone wants to take them home, those are all up for grabs. So moving on to this whole idea of keystone species. There are 17,000 species of North American native plants. Okay, that seems like a pretty huge number, but with the amount of habitat destruction across our continent, they are in peril as well as the creatures that feed on them. And of course we know that some of them are indispensable for certain vulnerable wildlife species so that they can complete their life cycle. And I think most everybody's heard about the issue with milkweed and monarchs losing their habitat, and then homeowners being encouraged to plant monarchs for the caterpillar stage to survive. So this whole idea of keystone is that certain native plants do most of the work fueling food webs. And if you think the whole keystone idea, if you pull out that one arch, that one stone, the entire arch collapses. And that is the same idea around ecosystems. If these keystone species are no longer present, then the chaos in the ecosystem can lead to collapse, like Cindy was saying. And then the Doug Ptolemy quote for this time is, "There's no animal that transfers more energy from plants than," you want to guess? Caterpillars. They are protein packed, and 96% of our terrestrial birds rely on butterfly and moth larvae. 96%. And again, looking at, if you consult with Audubon and other bird specialists, our bird species are in huge decline worldwide, but on this continent also. So those birds need those larvae within a certain distance. It's just like we don't drive over to town, like take the ferry every time we want to get food. You do it within a certain perimeter, and those parent birds do the same thing. So most caterpillars have adapted to feed on specific host plants with which they've co-evolved for millions of years. And one especially important plant, and it's on the keystone list, is oak trees for caterpillars. Thousands and thousands of different ones nestle into oaks. So the final thing I want to say is that the pollinator garden is gearing up for another year. This will be our 5th year out at Matsuda Farm. We have more than 100-foot row. And even though it's not a specific garden club project, almost all of the volunteers that work that area are from this club. So thank you for the amount of energy over the years that people have been involved with. Basically, we'll be getting out in the spring and taking down the stems. You want to wait, if you have kept things in your yard, until we have a consistent above 50 degrees, because then the hatchlings of the life cycle of these moths and butterflies will emerge, and we can take the stems and compost them. So we'll be taking taking the old stems down. Sometimes we have such a bounty that people actually bring their own pots and take home some of the pollinator plants to their home garden. So you get a bonus if you come work it with us. So if you're interested, see me or email me.